Good morning, brave adventurers, and welcome back to the channel. I am AmalgamAsh, and today I wanted to read off to you the giant wall of text posted by Justin Arnold this morning in his Discord, basically release notes for version 1.0.3 of rpginabox. rpginabox recently achieved its Indiegogo campaign goal. It actually got surpassed, and that is wonderful and awesome. It means that Justin will be able to continue working on rpginabox full time for some time, and it's off to a fantastic, mind-blowing start. A lot of new features and changes, some of which, perhaps many of which had been worked on before the Indiegogo campaign or during the campaign, but still, this is a rocket ship blasting off start to the development that's going to continue on this engine since the end of the campaign. So I just want to read these off. The best way to watch this video will probably be not to watch it, but to set it in the background and enjoy making your rpginabox game while we talk about the different features and changes. And I'll even run through the bug fixes as well, because there are quite a few bug fixes that got made for this version. So here we go. We're just going to jump right in. New features and changes. Added initial skill system implementation with a few built-in effects presets, healing and temporary stat buff and debuff, and many more to come. So we've got initial skill system implementation now. Added skills section to the stats editor for defining skills for your game. Skills can have one or more effects, including custom scripts. People have been wanting that, I know. That is going to make your combat so much more versatile, so much more custom, so much more yours. Added skill slot widget element type to the widget editor, which acts as a quick slot, allowing the player to use a skill. More uses to come. Skill slot widget element type to the widget editor. Very interesting. I have a feeling this is going to facilitate us being able to make our own limitations on what skills a given hero can use, and perhaps when they can use them. Or it will allow the dev to allow the player to customize what kind of skills they would like to have available to them. Added built-in skill bar widget to the widget editor can be enabled in UI section of game configuration or displayed via script using skill bar widget ID. So a piece of UI that allows you to see your available skills, or perhaps all of the skills that you can have access to, something to work towards. Added skill widget element property for assigning a skill to a skill slot. This means you can use bauxite code to assign skills to skill slots, which means you can build your skill system for the player to take advantage of and customize their own loadout. Added give skill scripting function for giving a skill to a character. This means you can reward the player by giving them skills throughout the course of the game. Added remove skill scripting function for removing a skill from a character. Oh no. This means you can make your own Pokemon-like game where your characters can only know so many skills and then they have to forget one to learn new ones. Added use skill scripting function for activating a character's skill. Added ability to override damage logic by having a script named damage logic in your project. Must return a numeric value, such as attacker, weapon, and defender. Those can be referenced. Very interesting. So I think the damage logic was something that was pretty well set, but now you can override that for more custom damage formula. Added min damage and max damage built-in item properties for getting the minimum and maximum damage values of a weapon item. So that's pretty awesome. That's something that I haven't really seen in a lot of other building type systems. The maximum amount of damage that this weapon can have. So that would really incentivize you to have lots of different weapons in your game and incentivize your player, rather, to go out and find these different weapons and build themselves up And if they're just walking around with this low-level stick, they're always only going to be able to do a maximum amount of like 10 damage to an enemy, whereas at their level, they should be swinging the Holy Grail sword. It's a very, very terrible improvised examples by me. You're welcome. Added give loot scripting function for generating and giving a loot drop with optional count and character parameters. For example, give loot, dungeon loot, 1 player. That's the example of the Bauxite code. That is pretty cool. So we'll have a give loot function now that we can assign as part of our scripting whenever an enemy gets downed, perhaps in real time. Added add item to tile scripting function for placing an item pickup onto a tile with optional count parameter. Okay, so we should be able to walk over a tile a few times until that count runs out. I mean, by default, I guess you'd want to set the count to 1, but it looks like you could do it several times for something like a farming game. Added delete save scripting function for deleting a save file with optional file name parameter. Oh boy. I guess that actually allows us to build our own save systems. So we can define or allow the player to define which save that they would like to delete while they're in there. The first thing my mind went to was Doki Doki Literature Club. Just the game deleting your save on your behalf for horror reasons or whatever. Added delete data scripting function for deleting a data file. Ooh. Added clamp scripting function for clamping a value to a set range. So, for example, you can use clamp and specify a value, a variable, and say that the result can be no less than the minimum variable and no more than the maximum variable. Added quest given, quest completed, and quest failed global event scripts that are triggered for each event, with the quest ID stored in the quest ID variable. Added dice roll syntax to the Bauxite scripting language for easily generating random numbers. For example, 2d8 will roll 2 8-sided dice and return the results. That's a pretty cool function. I like that. I wonder if we'll get to extrapolate this a little bit later and change 2d8 to 4d8 or whatever, so that if the player gets a new weapon or something, rather than having to copy paste all this logic, we can just replace the 2d8 as a variable or an argument with something else as soon as they have that weapon equipped. Something like that. That would be pretty cool, but this is pretty cool as it stands. This is pretty cool already. Added north tile, south tile, west tile, and east tile built-in entity properties to get the tile in a particular direction. Added front tile, back tile, left tile, right tile built-in character properties to get the tile relative to their facing direction. Interesting. These are things that I could see being necessary to have if you wanted to build your tactical system. Interesting. Added party, built-in variable for referencing all members of the player's party for future scripting use. Planning ahead. I love it. Added skills, built-in character property for getting a codex of the character's skills. Can be used with contains to check for a skill ID. So maybe you can do something like, if this character has skill heal, then they can heal this NPC in this very important branching cutscene. So something like that. Perhaps it can be used with UI that you're making for a custom battle system so that you know what to display for the player to choose. Added support for negation of the contains operator to the Bauxite scripting language. For example, if player.inventory contains, or rather does not contain, item _0001, then support for negation of the contains operator. That's cool. If you don't have this item, then this thing happens. If you don't have the key to this door, then this message appears. You don't have the key to the door. Added script editor setting to the editor settings dialog for expanding the source code area by default whenever a script is open. Yeah, I like that one. I like that one myself already. Added ability to rename custom character stats in the stats editor via the pencil button next to the list of character stats. Yes! Such a simple, lovely, just small but flavorful thing to do. I love that. Yes, yes. Added Indiegogo backer section to the About dialog window with a list of those who supported the Beyond 1.0 Indiegogo campaign. Hey, my name might be in that list. Added About button to the Game Manager dialog to allow credits and other information to be viewed without needing to open a project. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Added fallback font to the player, NPC, and message nodes in the dialog editor in case the current font is missing any characters. Ooh, that's nice. Just in case you have to type any crazy emoji in there, you won't get any Unicode question marks in the diamonds, anything like that. I don't think you'd get that anyway, but you know what I mean. Updated behavior of real-time enemies, so they'll use ranged weapons against the player if they've been given one and equipped with it. This is one that a lot of people loved when we got the teaser for the support there. That is really cool. Orcs with crossbows, my friends. Orcs with crossbows. Goblins with bows. Updated contains conditional operator to support checking if a key exists within a codex. For example, if variable myCodex contains the my key, then I could see if a key exists within a codex. So this makes me think, I'm not going to pretend that I do understand it wholly, but just reading it, it makes me think that you're checking to see the extent of an array contained in a variable. So if you've got a table and that table gets bigger, a table of data, not like a wooden mahogany table, that table gets bigger based on how many items that you actually get, then the key is getting incremented. So at some point, you might have all of these different items, and so your codex might have 10 keys, you've got 10 items, then this code would be extremely useful for saying, you need a bigger bag, so you can't pick up this next item if, for example, you've got a check on that codex for that key. So then that would enable you to have bag systems. If I'm reading that correctly, that's really cool. If I'm not reading that correctly, I could still probably imagine different practical scenarios to have that. That's really nice. Updated assignment statements in Bauxite to support using item references for the right operand. Updated give item, remove item, equip item, and unequip item functions to allow passing of just the ID string for the entity. Nice. Updated About dialog window to reset vertical scroll positions of the credit text boxes whenever the dialog window is closed and reopened. Updated Patreon credits in the About dialog to reflect the up-to-date levels for each patron based on the number of months pledged at each tier. Removed equipment slot debug messages that would display in the external console window when attempting to equip an item to an equipment slot. Thank you. So that's it. It's a lot. It's a lot of functionality that provides you as the game dev with functionality. So that is amazing. We'll check out the bug fixes now. Bug fixes for version 1.0.3. Fixed issue where the vehicle object would disappear when the player traveled to another map while controlling a vehicle. Fixed issue with player character's default scale as set in the voxel editor not being automatically applied in-game. Fixed issue with player character's sprite not being properly updated when using a multi-directional billboard sprite with tank controls. You may need to resave your model for this one. Fixed issue with multi-directional billboard sprites for character not being properly updated when the player would speak to an NPC. You may need to resave your model for this one to take effect. Fixed issue with decimal values not being properly converted to integers when restoring health to a character, such as via heal entity. Fixed issue with not being able to directly print out an item reference from a script. Fixed issue with cost and count built-in properties not parsing properly when used with a local variable. Fixed issue with ID built-in property not correctly returning the widget's ID when used in a button script with the widget variable. Fixed issue with some built-in properties for self not being accepted as valid syntax in a script. Oh, nice. Fixed issue with \n not properly displaying as a line break when used within the text of a text field via scripting. Fixed issue with equipping an item to a character without corresponding equipment widget. Fixed issue where default attached objects weren't automatically being attached to models in-game until removing and re-adding them to the map. Fixed issue with attaching objects via the attach object function when the current frame didn't have the specified attach point, even if others did. Fixed issue in the stats editor where attempting to delete a custom stat from the list would not properly remove the stat. Fixed issue where the list of status effects was not being cleared when exiting out of a project to the game manager. Oh wow. Fixed issue where the inventory could no longer be opened after loading a saved game. Equipment window would open instead. Fixed speed multiplier error that would occur after using the reset map scripting function to reset the current map. Fixed issue with add animation dialog where the text fields were extending outside the dialog box for some localizations. Fixed issue with missing English localization text for the delete status effect button in the stats editor. Fixed some issues that weren't being properly caught when passing invalid parameters into the save data and load data scripting functions. Fixed the move child error that would display in the external console window after a newly created script was opened in the script editor. So that's it. That is an enormous amount of fixes and feature updates for rpginabox, and I think that we have a lot more to look forward to. The engine is already pretty amazing. It's gotten me a little overwhelmed when I jumped in and tried to make something quickly because I didn't take the time to sit and learn it. And because of those being streams on my channel, I was able to get some attention and a little bit of help from some more knowledgeable folks. But I haven't been able to jump back into it just yet because I've had a lot of other things going on. But I am still planning 100% on recreating my game, Project Spectrum, in rpginabox, just sort of as a benchmark. And I can already see, well, a lot of this stuff is going to be very useful for battle, but maybe these skills will be useful for on-map skills, such as being able to break rocks or cut through grass or anything else really that you can imagine. Those are just two examples, two very, very common examples. And I don't have a lot of that in Project Spectrum, but that doesn't mean that I can't get ideas to put that stuff in there. After all, the original Spectrum game didn't get completed, so I have incomplete precedents to continue developing it out the way that I want. And then when I go out and go back and edit the original Project Spectrum, I can add those new things into that version as well. Anyway, I hope that you found this video somewhat useful. The main goal here was to update you on what has changed if you haven't used this in a while, if you didn't have eyes on the Indiegogo campaign, if you didn't see this as valid for your particular project before, maybe you do now, or if for whatever crazy reason you just didn't have faith that it would grow and change, and it certainly is growing and changing. The developer has a lot of love for this. Software, it's hard to almost boil it down to just saying software and encapsulating all that it is, because there is so much commitment and passion over this project. But you can make a game in it, and you can do that now, and you can make a pretty sick game, if I do say so myself. That's it. Thank you very much for listening. Comment whatever you'd like down below. And remember, I always link rpginabox in my descriptions below. So if you want to check it out, you can go down there and check it out. And I've got a ton of gameplay on my channel, different rpginabox games that I've played, so you can see what it has been able to do in the past. But that's not necessarily indicative of what it can do now. Those are just games that have been made and put out there so far. Some of those were just the developers were able to snap their fingers and throw a game out there for a jam. Other ones have a little bit more time put into them because the developer was able to put more time into them. Your results may vary. Your mileage may be different. but this thing can take you quite a long ways, and it's only getting better. So anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.